think you're doing?
Who, me? I'm shooting.
You can't shoot dogs. What are you, a psycho?
What?
When you hear the name Atlanta, you might think of hip-hop, Georgia, or even Coca-Cola. However, in this video, we are not talking about the city but Donald Glover's award-winning TV series that flipped the script on how comedy, drama, and culture collide. Did you know much was happening beneath what we all saw and admired? Grab a snack and stay glued to your screens as we reveal 20 shocking facts about Atlanta that will leave you wondering why you never knew about them until now. Number 20. They shot in actual Atlanta streets. Here is something that might surprise you. Atlanta was not pretending to be Atlanta. Unlike many shows that say they are set in a city but end up filming in Canada or inside some shiny Hollywood studio, Donald Glover and his team actually went into the real streets of Atlanta to film. Now think about it. Have you ever watched a show that claimed to be set in New York, but the roads looked too clean to be real? Or a Chicago scene where you could spot palm trees in the background? That was never the case with Atlanta. What you saw on screen was actually the real deal. This choice made the city itself feel like a character in a strange but unique way. When Ern is walking past a strip mall that has seen better days, when Paper Boy is hanging out on the block, or when Darius is cooking wings while saying something that makes no sense but somehow makes sense, you are looking at the honest Atlanta, not something fake or edited. Filming on real streets also meant real surprises. Some of the people in the background were not even hired extras. They were just locals living their lives. Imagine stepping out of your house one morning and seeing Paper Boy standing there. Would you try to act cool or freeze and ask yourself, wait, am I in the show right now? That is why the show felt dark and alive. You could almost taste the lemon pepper wings. You could feel the Georgia heat and hear the car horns. Locals often said the show captured their city exactly the way it is. Don't believe? Maybe you should watch the film one more time, and this time keep your eyes on the streets. Next. Number 19. Donald Glover wanted something different. Donald Glover is not the type who enjoys doing what everyone else does. When he created Atlanta, he did not want it to be just another comedy show about rappers or friends hanging out. Instead, he wanted something outstanding that would make people pause and ask themselves, what did I just watch? When FX asked him to describe the show, he gave them an answer they did not expect. He said it was like Friends. But once the cameras started rolling, it became clear that Atlanta was nothing like that. Instead of a happy laugh-track comedy, Donald gave the world a strange mix of humor, pain, and reality. Some episodes were funny, some were emotional, and some were weird. For him, this was the point. He wanted a show that did not fit neatly into one box. He once described Atlanta as "Curb Your Enthusiasm for Rappers." Another time, he compared it to cartoons like Adventure Time. That tells you how much he refused to be tied down by one style. Even the way he handled each season was different. He treated them like albums. Season 1 felt like an introduction. Season 2 was called Robin Season. Season 3 went into surreal European stories. And Season 4 wrapped it all up like a full circle. That approach is uncommon in TV, but it was precisely what made Atlanta so refreshing. Don't you agree? Next. Number 18. Ern's couch was inspired by Glovo's past. Do you remember that sad little couch Ern crashes on in the early episodes of Atlanta? The one that looks like it survived 5 roommates, a messy breakup, and maybe a raccoon? Did you know that it wasn't just set design? Yes, it's personal. According to the reports, Donald Glover based that setup on an absolute chapter of his life. When he was broke, uncertain, and chasing dreams, he couch-surfed through Los Angeles, sleeping in friends' living rooms while wondering if he was wasting his time. Sound familiar? That weird limbo where you're not a failure but not thriving either? That's Ern. The couch represents more than being broke. It's an emotional standstill. Have you ever slept somewhere that isn't yours and started questioning your whole life at 3 a.m. with questions like, is this how it starts? Am I a guest? Or am I slowly becoming furniture? Glover once said the couch had to be comfortable enough to stay, but just sad sufficient to remind Ern he shouldn't. Now that's a particular kind of pain. He added that he wanted Ern's experience to be not too sweet or bitter. But why didn't Ern just go back to his parents' house? Why do we settle in places not meant for us? even when they drain us? Is the couch a metaphor for comfort zones that kill your ambition? If you watched closely, you will agree that even the way the camera frames it left a message. This isn't just a couch. It's Ern's bed, thinking spot, trap, and sometimes excuse. So next time you see him stretched out, staring at a ceiling that isn't his, remember that couch isn't just a prop. It's a memory, a warning, and maybe something a little too familiar for a lot of us. Next, number 17. The show influenced real Atlanta slang. When Atlanta premiered in 2016, fans expected sharp writing, surreal moments, and a unique look into the city's culture. However, many did not initially realize that the show would also leave fingerprints on how people spoke. Donald Glover and his team did not just reflect Atlanta slang, they added to it, polished it, and sometimes pushed specific phrases into mainstream conversations. Atlanta already had a rich dictionary of expressions tied to its music scene and neighborhoods. Trap artists, comedians, and local storytellers had built a language that outsiders often tried to copy, so the show leaned into that authenticity. It used words that were already buzzing through the streets, but framed them in new comedic or dramatic ways that made viewers latch on. Suddenly, phrases that once stayed inside the city were repeated in New York, Los Angeles, and even outside the United States by fans who discovered them through the series. Interestingly, characters like Paperboy and Darius delivered lines with such timing that even casual slang sounded like catchphrases. How they emphasized or dropped words in unusual moments made fans remember them. Clips were shared on social media, and soon enough slang tied to Atlanta had been boosted by the very show that set out to highlight the culture. The most fascinating part is that residents noticed the shift. People who once thought their expressions would remain local started hearing them echoed back by strangers online. A television series had turned street talk into pop culture currency. It raises a curious question. When a show changes how people speak, is it reflecting reality or rewriting it? Next, number 16. The episode titles had hidden meaning. Atlanta was never a show that spelled everything out for its viewers, and the episode titles were a perfect example of that. At first glance, many seemed random, almost too simple to matter, but upon closer inspection, each one held a clue or layered significance that tied directly to the episode's deeper themes. Take BAN, for instance. It was not just a random set of letters. It stood for the fictional Black American Network, and the entire episode was styled as a surreal parody of a talk show, complete with fake commercials. The title set the tone for the satirical critique of race, media, and identity. Other episodes used titles that subtly played with cultural references. Juneteenth appeared to be about celebrating freedom, but the story focused more on the awkward, performative nature of wealthy gatherings and the disconnect between surface-level wokeness and lived experience. Then there was Teddy Perkins, one of the most haunting episodes in the series. The title was nothing more than the name of a mysterious character. Still, by placing his name up front, the show hinted that the entire narrative would revolve around a deeply unsettling figure, and it delivered. Surprisingly, these titles were not random labels. They acted like puzzle pieces. They dared viewers to think again and again, to dig deeper, and to realize that in Atlanta, even the smallest detail, such as the name of an episode, carried hidden weight. Next, number 15. Zazie Beetz almost didn't audition. Zazie Beetz has become one of the most recognizable faces from Atlanta, but her journey to landing the role of Vanessa almost did not happen. At the time when auditions were taking place, she was not in a stable place professionally or personally. Like many struggling actors, she faced moments of self-doubt and considered skipping the audition altogether. She questioned whether she was the right fit for the role and feared she would not stand out in a sea of talent, vying for a spot in Donald Glover's highly anticipated series. Despite these doubts, fate had other plans. Encouraged by a friend and with little expectation, she decided to go in for the audition. What followed was a natural connection between her and the character. Reportedly, Vanessa was written to be grounded, flawed, and deeply human, and Zazie effortlessly carried those qualities into the room. Her chemistry with the rest of the cast sealed the deal, and soon she was locked into a role that would define a large part of her career. Looking back, Zazie often reflects on how close she came to passing up the opportunity that would change her life. The role opened doors to other projects such as Deadpool 2 and Joker, making her an international star. Her hesitation reminds us of how fragile turning points can be. One skipped audition could have meant an entirely different trajectory for her career. Atlanta gave her a stage, and she brought Vanessa to life with authenticity that resonated with viewers everywhere. Number 14. It took 4 years to finish all 4 seasons. If you felt like Atlanta disappeared for ages between seasons, you were not imagining it. The show had one of the most unusual timelines in modern television. It took 4 long years to finish all 4 seasons, and for fans, it felt like waiting for a bus that might never come. Just when people started to wonder if Donald Glover had abandoned the show for good, he would reappear with a new season and remind everyone why the wait was worth every second. Part of the reason for the long gaps was Glover's schedule. He was acting, writing, producing, directing, and in between, casually becoming a Grammy-winning music star named Childish Gambino. Getting everyone back on the same set felt like herding cats, especially considering other cast members like Lakeith Stanfield, Brian Tyree Henry, and Zazie Beetz were also experiencing success in Hollywood. The extended break even became part of the show's legend. Fans would joke online that Atlanta was more like an eclipse than a TV series because you only got to see it once in a blue moon. The wait built up so much hype that when new episodes finally dropped, they felt like cultural events rather than TV premieres. Notably, what made it more intriguing was how fresh and bold the show remained despite the delays. The long breaks never dulled its creativity. Instead, they made fans hungrier, and Glover delivered stories that felt sharper and weirder than ever. In the end, those 4 years of patience paid off with a series that still stands as one of the boldest experiments in modern television. Next. Number 13. Guest stars came through personal texts. One of the quirkiest secrets behind Atlanta was how many of its guest stars landed their roles. Forget the usual Hollywood casting calls and endless auditions. On this show, Donald Glover often just pulled out his phone, sent a text, and boom, another guest star was on board. It was as casual and personal as asking a friend to come hang out, except instead of grabbing dinner, they were suddenly starring in one of the decade's most talked about TV shows. This unusual method made perfect sense for a series as unpredictable as Atlanta. The whole vibe of the show thrived on surprise and spontaneity, so it felt natural that some of its most memorable cameos happened simply because Glover or someone on the creative team thought, "Hey, wouldn't it be wild if this person showed up?" A quick message later, it was happening. The results were golden. Stars and artists who might never have been reached through a traditional process appeared on screen in roles that fans still discuss today. The relaxed, personal way of inviting people gave the show a unique energy, as if it were less about business and more about being part of a special, once-in-a-lifetime experiment. It also reflected Glover's personality and influence. He had built genuine relationships across music, film, and comedy, so people showed up when he texted. Remarkably, that personal touch helped Atlanta feel authentic and cool, with a rotating door of cameos that could pop up at any moment. Fans never knew who might appear next, and that unpredictability kept the show deliciously fun to watch. Next. Number 12. Brian Tyree. Henry skipped rap research. Brian Tyree, Henry's character, Alfred, also known as Paper Boy, became one of the most recognizable parts of Atlanta. You would think that to play a rising rapper on screen, Henry must have spent hours studying hip-hop history, learning flow patterns, and maybe even practicing rhymes in front of the mirror. The truth is the complete opposite. He did not dive into rap research at all. In fact, he pretty much just showed up and made it work. Henry once joked that he had no idea what he was doing when it came to rap. He was not secretly writing bars in his notebook or hanging out at open mics to catch the vibe. Instead, he trusted the script and leaned on his natural acting talent. The funny part is that this made his performance even better. Because he was not trying too hard, Alfred came across as raw and believable, the kind of rapper who looked like he just stumbled into fame and was still figuring it all out. Fans found this hilarious because many assumed Henry was some hidden rapper in real life, but outside the show he has openly admitted that he cannot rap to save his life. That gap between expectation and reality is what makes it so funny. He was not the actor who transformed himself into a musician. He was the actor who skipped the homework and still nailed the test. That is precisely what made Paperboy feel so real. Next. Number 11. Lemon Pepper Wet became real. One of the funniest and most talked about moments in Atlanta came when the show introduced the phrase lemon pepper wet. Before then, most people had never heard of chicken wings being described that way. Yes, lemon pepper and sauced wings existed, but combining them into a perfectly seasoned, perfectly juicy version sounded almost too good to be true. Yet the show made it sound so real that fans instantly wanted to try it. What started as a fictional food mention quickly became a real menu item. Wing spots across Atlanta and outside the city began requesting lemon pepper wet. Some admitted they had no idea what customers were talking about until they watched the show. But once they did, restaurants began experimenting with their own versions. Before long, it became a thing. Now you can actually find lemon pepper wet wings on menus, and for many fans, tasting them feels like stepping right into an episode of the series. The most amusing part is how it shows the power of TV culture. A throwaway line in a comedy series ended up shaping food trends. It blurred the line between fiction and reality in the funniest way possible. Even people who never watched the show now order it, not realizing it started as a joke. That is the kind of cultural impact Atlanta had. A single joke about wings turned into a dish you can order in real life, and that is the kind of legacy most comedies only dream of leaving behind. Number 10. FX initially banned the N-word. When Atlanta was first being developed, one word nearly changed the show's entire direction: the N-word. According to the reports, FX, the network that greenlit the series, wasn't sure about letting it fly around on television, even in a show set in Atlanta's hip-hop scene. Can you imagine a show about rappers, hustlers, and the streets of Atlanta without that word being said? It would feel like ordering wings and being told there's no sauce. So at the start, the executives put their foot down. They wanted Donald Glover and his writers to avoid the N-word. But here is where the story gets interesting. Glover and his team knew banning the N-word meant prohibiting a particular authenticity. How could Earn, Paperboy, and Darius speak like real Atlanta guys if they were tiptoeing around words people use daily? Would the conversations still feel real? Would the humor still land the same? Eventually, the pushback worked. Glover explained that the show wasn't using the word just to shock people. It was part of the rhythm and reality of the characters' lives. If the show couldn't sound real, it couldn't be real. Slowly, FX loosened the rule. The words started appearing, and just like that, the dialogue clicked into place. Looking back, it's almost funny to think about. Imagine Atlanta with all its sharp jokes and raw conversations, but sanitized like a daytime soap opera. Would it have connected with fans the same way? Probably not. Sometimes the very thing that makes people nervous is what makes a show unforgettable. Next. Number 9. Black Skin Code. In an unexpected twist, Donald Glover wanted something never done on FX. He insisted on assembling the first all-black writers' room in the network's history. Now, that was not just a symbolic move. It was a deliberate choice to make sure the show sounded, felt, and lived like the city it represented. How else could Atlanta be brought to life if the voices behind the dialogue did not reflect the community? The writers he gathered were not the traditional sitcom veterans. Some had backgrounds in stand-up comedy, music, or even just sharp internet humor. They shared a sense of rhythm, culture, and experience that could not be faked. These voices knew how it felt to ride a MARTA bus, hang out at a gas station, or argue about wings at 2 in the morning. This decision changed everything. FX had never trusted a room like this before, yet what came out of it was electric. The writers gave the show its unique balance of comedy, surrealism, and raw honesty. They created funny characters without trying to be clowns, serious without being stiff, and complicated in ways that felt real. It also opened the door for networks to rethink what a writer's room could look like. If Atlanta could thrive with a team like that, why couldn't other shows? Representation was no longer just a buzzword. It was proof of concept. The first all-black writers' room on FX made history, and television feel more alive. Would Atlanta have been the same if that room had been filled with the usual Hollywood suspects? Or did its magic come from the fact that, for once, the right people were finally holding the pen? Guess only Donald knows why he did it. Next. Number 8. Improvisation spiced up the show. One of the secrets behind Atlanta's unforgettable scenes is that not everything was tightly scripted. Improvisation played a massive role in giving the show its flavor. Donald Glover and the creative team encouraged the actors to play with their lines, stretch out conversations, and bring their instincts into the moment. After all, who knows the rhythm of a character better than the person embodying them? Take Brian Tyree Henry's portrayal of Paper Boi as an instance. Uniquely, so much of his dialogue feels natural, almost like you are eavesdropping on a real conversation in a neighborhood barbershop. That authenticity often came from letting him improvise reactions or riff on an idea until it felt right. Lakeith Stanfield, who played Darius, took improvisation to another level, shaping his character into one of the most unpredictable and beloved figures on television. Improvisation added humor and texture to the film, shifting scenes from absurd to emotional in a heartbeat. Sometimes a line improvised on set would end up being the one everyone quoted online the next day. Other times, silence and awkward pauses, chosen in the moment, created tension you could feel through the screen. This freedom gave Atlanta its raw edge. It felt alive and intentionally unpolished, as if the characters were speaking directly from lived experience rather than a writer's room blueprint. Would Atlanta have resonated similarly if every line had been locked down on paper? Or was it that unpredictability, that spark of improvisation, that made the show feel like real life unfolding before our eyes? Next. Number 7. Album promo, hidden in the show. You heard that right. One of the smartest things Donald Glover did with Atlanta was using the show to promote his music quietly. Instead of separating his TV career from his music career, he found a way to mix them so that fans were drawn into both worlds simultaneously. In Season 2, songs from his album, Awaken My Love, showed up in different episodes. These songs were not just there by chance, they helped set the mood while also reminding viewers of Glover's music. It was advertising without looking like advertising, strengthening the connection between Childish Gambino and Atlanta. The timing of his releases made it even more powerful. People were already talking about the show when This Is America came out. The heavy themes in the music video matched the energy of Atlanta, which often mixed humor with brutal social truths. Fans could feel that the music and the show were part of the same vision. Glancing at his albums from Atlanta, Glover showed how creative and strategic he is. He turned a TV show into a bigger platform for his art, proving that he is not just an actor or a musician but a storyteller across every medium. Did you notice this album while watching, or did you not? Next. Number 6. No commercials for Teddy Perkins. When the Teddy Perkins episode aired, something unusual shocked many viewers. FX decided not to show a single commercial break during the entire broadcast. This was a bold move for a network that makes most of its money through ads. Why would they take such a risk? The answer lies in how powerful and strange the episode was meant to feel. The Teddy Perkins story was already one of Atlanta's creepiest and most unforgettable episodes. By removing commercials, FX allowed viewers to stay locked into the tense atmosphere without distractions. Imagine sitting in front of your screen, fully drawn into this unsettling mansion, and suddenly being pulled out by a funny ad about fast food. It would have ruined the mood completely, don't you think? FX and Donald Glover knew that if this episode was to work, it needed to feel like one long nightmare with no pause for comfort. The decision worked perfectly. Fans later said that watching Teddy Perkins straight through made the experience far more intense. It felt more like a short film than a television episode. Critics also praised the network for daring to break tradition, calling it one of the most innovative choices in television at the time. FX lost advertising money that night, but they gained something much bigger. They created history, proving that sometimes art comes first. By trusting Glover's vision, they gave the audience an unforgettable experience still discussed years later. That night, viewers did not just watch Atlanta, they lived inside it. And once the credits rolled, the silence in living rooms everywhere felt as haunting as Teddy Perkins himself. Next. Number 5. The show was compared to cartoons. At first glance, Atlanta was nothing like a cartoon. It was a drama comedy about music, family, and survival in the city. But the more people watched, the more they noticed something strange. Each episode often felt like it was bending reality, twisting logic, and creating moments so exaggerated that they resembled the rules of animation more than real life. Fans and critics pointed out how Donald Glover and his team built stories that could slide from severe to absurd in a single scene. One moment, Earn and Paper Boy talked about rent and money problems. Next, an invisible car was running over people at a party, and everyone accepted it as usual. That is where the cartoon comparison came in. Just like in cartoons, the laws of the real world did not always apply. But here is the twist that kept audiences glued. While cartoons are meant to entertain children, Atlanta used the same playful style to explore very adult themes. Racism, class, and fame were all tackled, but through situations that felt almost surreal. Yes, the laughter came, but uncomfortable truths often followed it. The effect was powerful. People found themselves laughing at the strangeness one moment and reflecting deeply the next. Some even said the show was like Looney Tunes meeting social commentary. Just when you thought a storyline was predictable, it would spin in a completely different direction, almost like a cartoon character running off a cliff but refusing to fall until they looked down. That unique ability to mix the unreal with the painfully real made Atlanta special. It was not just compared to cartoons, it made viewers realize life itself sometimes feels like one. Next. Number 4. Migos cameo almost didn't happen. What if one of the most unforgettable cameos in Atlanta rarely made it to the screen? That happened with the Migos' appearance in the first season. The rap group, known for their hit songs and flashy lifestyle, was supposed to show up as themselves in a scene that mixed humor with street tension. But behind the scenes there were doubts, scheduling issues, and even moments when it seemed the idea would be scrapped. At first, the challenge was timing. Migos were already blowing up in the music world, traveling constantly, and their schedule did not align with the show's filming. Donald Glover and his team wanted the authenticity only Migos could bring, but it felt like the window was closing quickly. For a while, there was talk of replacing them with other rappers or writing the cameo completely. Then came another twist. Some people on set were worried that bringing real rappers into a scripted series could be risky. Would they be able to act naturally? Would the scene work, or would it feel forced? These questions almost delayed things even further. But when Migos finally stepped onto the set, all those doubts disappeared. They effortlessly blended into the world of Atlanta, turning what could have been a simple appearance into a scene that fans still talk about today. Their coolness, unpredictability, and raw energy gave the episode a spark no one could have delivered. Looking back, it is hard to imagine Atlanta without that moment. The cameo that almost did not happen became proof of how the show thrived on risk. Sometimes the best scenes are born right at the edge of falling apart. Next. Number 3. Writer sessions at home. Have you ever wondered how the ideas for Atlanta came together before the cameras rolled? Much of the magic started in writer sessions held at home. Instead of gathering in fancy studios or big offices, Donald Glover and his team often worked in simple living rooms where the atmosphere felt free and personal. These sessions were not just about writing lines, but about sharing real stories. The writers would sit around, talk about life in Atlanta, and draw from things they had seen or experienced. Conversations about family, money, music, and even funny moments in the city slowly shaped the show's unique voice. Everyone had space to speak, which made the storytelling feel natural and honest. Working at home also meant fewer rules. The team could take breaks, laugh, and throw around wild ideas without feeling the pressure of a professional setting. This freedom helped them create a show that felt different from anything else on television. The home sessions became the heart of the creative process. They gave Atlanta its raw truth and allowed the writers to shape stories that felt close to real life. Out of those casual talks came the sharp, unforgettable moments viewers love. Number 2. Donald Glover kept a distance from the cast. It may sound surprising, but Donald Glover often kept his distance from the cast while filming Atlanta. Though he was the creator, writer, and lead actor, he believed that stepping back helped the other actors shine in their own way. He wanted them to live inside their characters without feeling they were following his every move. On set, Glover sometimes stayed quiet or even disappeared between takes. This gave the cast room to build their own chemistry and connect naturally. Instead of looking to him for direction, they found their own rhythm, which added to the show's raw and real feeling. His distance was not about pride, but about trust. Glover trusted the people he had chosen to tell the story. He gave them freedom to explore and grow within their roles by keeping a little space. This unusual method worked. The performances felt authentic, the energy flowed easily, and the show captured real life's messy, unpredictable nature. Glover's decision to step back showed his belief that sometimes the best leadership comes from not being in the center, but allowing others to take the light. Number 1. Donald wrote, "In the woods for 7 days." What happens when a writer leaves the city noise behind and disappears into the woods with nothing but his thoughts? That is precisely what Donald Glover did while shaping Atlanta. He spent 7 straight days alone in a cabin, far from distractions and far from the fast pace of the world. It was just him, his pen, and the silence of the trees. The woods became his creative partner. Each morning, he woke up to birds instead of car horns. The quiet let him hear the characters in his head more clearly, their voices becoming sharper and their stories more alive. When night fell, the darkness outside only pulled him deeper into his imagination. It was in that solitude that some of Atlanta's most unique ideas were born. 7 days may not sound like much, but it was a complete reset for Glover. No buzzing phones, no city chatter, no endless distractions, just raw focus. By the time he left the woods, he was carrying scripts and a renewed vision for what the show could be. That week proved something powerful. Creativity often blooms when silence takes over. Atlanta was never meant to feel like just another TV show. It was meant to feel alive, unpredictable, and layered, just like the thoughts that poured out of him in that cabin. Stepping away from the world gave Donald Glover the space to create something unforgettable, and it shows how powerful isolation can be for deep thinking and fresh ideas. But beyond him, it makes you wonder, do we all need moments of silence away from the noise to discover what we are truly capable of? Which fact shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more engaging content. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye for now.